There is a war that has been fought for almost 5,000 years. You won't find it in any history textbook, not really. There are no famous battles named after it, no generals, no monuments in any capital city. Most of the people who fought in it never even knew they were fighting at all. But this war has killed more human beings and saved more human beings than every declared war in recorded history combined. And right now, one of its most effective weapons is probably sitting a few feet away from you. To understand how strange and how important this war really is, you have to start in one very specific place, on one very specific afternoon, inside one of the most respected hospitals in Europe. Vienna, the 1840s. Inside the Vienna General Hospital, there were two maternity wards, sitting almost side by side, treating the same kind of patients, delivering the same kind of babies inside the same building. One ward was staffed by midwives. And one, the other was staffed by highly trained doctors and medical students from one of the most prestigious medical schools on the continent. You would assume the ward with the doctors was safer. You would be wrong. Women in the doctor's ward were dying of a mysterious, brutal infection at several times the rate of the women being treated by midwives next door. It struck days after childbirth, fever, agony, and in a horrifying number of cases, death for the mother and often, soon after, for the newborn. The story became so well known across the city that pregnant women began to beg, on their knees, not to be sent to the doctor's ward. Some women, already in labor, chose to give birth in the streets outside the hospital rather than walk through its doors. Then walked in afterward, pretending the birth had simply happened too fast, just so they wouldn't be admitted to the ward that was killing mothers by the hundreds. Nobody could explain why the ward with the more educated doctors N2 was so much more dangerous than the one next to it. Nobody, that is, except for one increasingly obsessed young doctor. And what he eventually discovered would not be believed, would destroy his career, and would ultimately contribute to his death. But we'll come back to him, because to really understand what happened inside that hospital, you first have to go back almost 5,000 years earlier, to the very beginning of this story. Long before anyone on Earth had ever heard the word soap. Long before Vienna, long before Rome, before Greece, before the pyramids of Egypt were even finished being built, there was Mesopotamia. The land between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, home to some of the very first cities human beings ever constructed. And it's here, in the excavated ruins of ancient Babylon, that archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary. Small clay cylinders, buried for thousands of years, dating back to around 2800 BCE. Pressed into the still wet clay, and 3,000 of years ago, was a recipe. Not a poem, not a prayer, a set of technical instructions. One of the oldest of their kind ever discovered, describing how to boil animal fat together with wood, ash, and water. That combination, fat plus alkali plus water, is the oldest known form of soap on Earth.